live right now. I was planning on doing this earlier today, but some things came up. I had a goat. I had a little buckling of mine get a little injured, and I had to go take care of that real quick and get him all splinted up. And oh, just the wonders of having animals. These things happen, infrequently, but when they do happen, it's a pain in the butt. You kind of got to drop everything you're doing. Uh, First question. I got a question from Courtney. Courtney's question was, "Hey man, do you have any books coming out soon?" And the answer for that, Courtney, is actually no. I've got two that I've been working on off and on for the past year and a half, and I only really write when it is a necessity, when I feel like I'm gonna burst at the seams, and if I don't write, I'm not gonna be able to live myself or go to sleep or whatever. I don't feel like that right now because I got so many other things going on. From about 2020 to 2025, that's how I felt, and I felt like I was doing that constantly. I was writing all the time, dude. And it was hard because when I started building my house, I also felt that desire to write, and it was really hard to do both at the same time. So finally, I kind of decided, oh, I got to shelve this. I'll come back to it later. So to answer your question, no. Right now, basically what I'm doing is just marketing what I already have written. And I mean, there's a lot of people who have already read my stuff, but there's also quite a few who haven't yet. And the way I see it is, if I keep marketing it, you know, eventually some of the fence sitters will realize, okay, maybe there's some information this guy has that can really help me out, and that's the thing. Like I said, I'm kind of retired light, diet retired, so to speak. I don't have to work if I don't want to, but I also don't want to sit on my butt. I want to do things. So, it's one of these things I have to explain to some of the new people who come here. It's like, yeah, I market my books. I don't really care if you buy them or not. I'm just putting it out there, and some people do and some people don't, and it is what it is. It's not a I always have to remind people, my YouTube, my TikTok, my social media presence is different than the vast majority of YouTube creators. A lot of people start YouTube and that's their get rich quick scheme. Well, I already did pretty well in my life before YouTube. So YouTube is kind of like, it's kind of like a fun little hobby for me. And is it a little bit of a vessel for business? Yeah, of course, but it is what it is. So if you have any other questions, Courtney, you can just reach out to me via email. My email's the pinned comment and all that. I do these lives because I do them infrequently, because what happens with my lives with YouTube is sometimes they're shadow banned and nobody knows I'm even doing them. And other times, like last time, I had like almost 800 people view the live. So I never really know. So I figured my experiment with this is I will try going live. And what I've noticed is sometimes it'll take 20, 30, 40 minutes, but eventually YouTube will start kind of pushing my stuff out in the algorithm and people will show up. So, like I said, in my pinned comment, I typically don't answer questions. I do prefer people super chat me if they got good questions, but if I'm bored or if you got a good question, I might answer it. I don't know. Otherwise, I'll just kind of go off on tangents, which is what I do. So, the stuff that people like to talk with me about are typically precious metals, crypto, investment stuff. I saw a really interesting thing about housing the other day, and I was probably going to talk about this on this live. I saw a graph from Lennar, one of these big home builders, and it showed their average pricing from pre-pandemic to the peak of the pandemic and to right now, like late 2025, early 2026. And it was really interesting because it really didn't read the way you thought it would. And I'm going to paraphrase because I don't have it in front of me. But what it seemed is that the average new build for a Lennar house was $425,000 before the pandemic in 2019. The peak of the pandemic, it was $511,000. And right now, new Lennar homes, the average price is $375K. So right now, with incentives, their new builds are actually selling for lower than pre-pandemic prices. What is the importance of this? Is that people who bought houses, now, whether they bought cash or a mortgage, I'm not even talking about that. But if they bought during the pandemic, during those heights, they are subject to golden handcuffs. They cannot sell. Because first off, they're married to their low interest rate if they did get a mortgage. Second off is, how can a used house compete with a new house? that's got incentives, like a rate buy down or whatever, So a lot of people right now are screwed. It was really funny, I think about it, when the pandemic started. Everybody was playing musical chairs. People were moving to the country, working remote. Everybody was playing musical chairs and moving someplace new. People were moving from LA to Bozeman, Montana, from New York City to, an orange grove in Florida, right? But now, it's the opposite of musical chairs. Most people are stuck even more than they were before the pandemic happened. So it's kind of one of those things, be careful what you wish for, you may get it. A lot of those people who moved during the pandemic and they got that low rate or whatever, they are terminally stuck for a long time. And I've seen this. I watch a lot of TikTok channels where normies kvetch about how they're not able to sell their old, crappy house with Formica countertops and, laminate floors and avocado shag green carpet, and it's like, yeah, you think? Because these builders know what time it is. They know that the economy's in the dump, and they know that ain't nothing gonna sell. So if they want to sell, they're putting more builder grade, lower quality crap in there, no doubt. But that's the only way they're able to sell for less money. Because you better believe these developers, when they buy land in the countryside or wherever, they're paying top dollar. Where I live in Northwest Arkansas, there are still farmers selling out, particularly in one of the towns right next to Bentonville, which is called Pea Ridge. Pea Ridge, Arkansas is a microcosm of everything that's wrong right now. And there are some farmers that are holding out and saying, I don't care what you offer me. It's basically housing for all the H-1B Indian visa hires for Walmart. And it's tough. Seeing what's going on there is really tough when you know what it used to look like. There are some farmers who are holding out who won't sell, but there are many who are like, oh my God, you're offering me $3 million for 20 acres? Shit, I can't say no to that. So, be prepared to hear your family, your friends complain that they can't move, that there's no way they can move, they can't do this, that, and the other. They're stuck. You're going to hear a lot more of this. And I think, with the economy being kind of in a controlled tailspin like it is right now, the reason why this is happening is so that these people can really feel the pain of their economic decisions. They can't move. They can't sell their house and move to a new place and get that fresh injection of being in a new place and having a new contact high from that. They don't have that experience anymore. So it's going to be really tough for them. But, what can you do? All I do is look at these trends and look at the analysis and say, wow, those people are really screwed. They did that during the pandemic, and they thought they were making a great decision, because their realtor lied to them and told them real estate only goes up, and they bought it hook, line, and sinker. All these real estate agents were saying, oh, marry the rate, buy the house, or whatever. What were they saying? Like, date the rate, marry the house. I think that's what they were saying, and people were buying this stuff hook, line, and sinker. Imagine you hear this from a realtor. Most realtors were the people who plateaued, reached their peak in high school, right? Imagine believing anything a realtor says. I don't know who's worse, a realtor or a used car salesman at this point in time. And I would know something about that because I'm looking for a new vehicle right now. And guess who I'm dealing with? I'm dealing with private parties. I'm dealing with used car lots. I'm dealing with dealerships. And I honestly can't tell you who's worse right now. They're all lying. Every single one of them's lying. They're all liars. I ask anybody, whether it be a private party, a used car dealer, or a dealership, for service records, and they don't have anything. And so I talked to a private party earlier today, and I'm like, dude, for the money you're asking me, how do you expect me to take your word for it, brother, man? Like, you don't even have service records for basic stuff, and you just want me to believe that this isn't just a pit of deferred maintenance? And the guy's just like, oh, somebody will buy it. I'm like, yeah, you're right. But the person who does buy it, when it dies on them, is probably going to hunt you down. Have you ever thought of that? So real estate and the car market is where I can see really where people's heads are at. And right now, people are distrustful. This is the lowest trust society we've ever had in this country. It's never been worse. I've been on the planet 40 years. It's never been worse. It is so low trust. That's why I get everything in writing. That's why I ask these car sellers for service records. Like, dude, I'm not going to take your word for it. Like, I don't care if there's a little Jiffy Lube sticker saying that you changed the oil 3,000 miles ago. I don't give a shit. I want to see paperwork, and that's the only way with these people. But everybody's lying. And you could see with the vast majority of the public, they're trying to cleave to only making small purchases like food, because those are the only times where you don't feel like you're getting taken advantage of, when you're buying food, or small purchases like underwear. That's tolerable. But you can see the fear and the trepidation and the stress with people nowadays in 2026 if they have to make a major purchase, like renting an apartment, buying a house, buying a car. People are trying to avoid that to the best of their ability, because they know they're going to get hosed. Because it's impossible. No man is an island. It's impossible to know everything. Like, even mechanics, you'll hear them say, man, I know about cars, and this person put one past me. Happens all the time. You hear all the time about, a home inspector or a realtor or a builder buying a house for themselves, and they go, dang it, I missed that, And once the paperwork's signed, they end up with the house that's a problem, It just happens so much. It's so sad, but I try to when I talk to people in my daily life, I talk to them about things like this, like, hey, what's stressing you out? Like, I like to know what the word on the street is with the common people, and I don't consider myself anything other. I like to see what people are stressing out about, not because I like to feel their pain, but because I like to kind of gauge that way, word to your mother, right? To know what's going on in the economy, to see where people's pain points are, to see what the issues are. And a lot of people, what I'm really seeing is that people are really loathing making big purchases right now in 2026. They're all waiting to the best of their ability and going, man, do I need that car right now? Do I need to switch my residence? Do I really need to do this? I feel like things are going to get worse. I feel like I can get a better deal a couple months from now. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. I don't know. People are so demoralized and induced or inducted into this new doomer mentality, where people just don't know, and people don't want to make big decisions. And I kind of view myself in the same sense. I have a good tolerance for risk, but I don't want to make big decisions right now either. It seems like we're kind of in this middle zone, this no man's zone, right, where you don't really know what's going on. I mean, like I talk about all the time, I deal with precious metals. The price of gold is $4,620 an ounce. The price of silver, has been volatile the past 2 days. It went up to 93. It went down to 87. Right now, it's hovering around 90 last time I checked. No one knows what's going on. And, I get people contacting me, and they're like, hey, man, how do I know what's going on? And I'm like, I have to give them like a 5-minute disclaimer first. Like, hey, man, like, I'm tell you right now, take what I'm saying with the grain of salt, because I have an informed decision, but at the same time, I'm not, the Messiah or whatever. So, I could be wrong about some things. I could be right. I don't know. Here's the percentages. But people are looking for answers right now, and they're nowhere to be found, because all you do, and I don't have a TV, so I wouldn't know, but you go out, you look on the TV, right? And everybody, everything's at an all-time high. Equities, stocks, precious metals, real estate, everything. And so people are like, well, what do I do? So people feel like they're locked. They're locked in an economic straitjacket. They don't know what to do. Where do they turn? And so a lot of people are left in this situation where they really don't know what to do. They're just like, man, can I sleep it off? Can I hibernate for 6 months? And I kind of feel the same way too. Just the stratospheric rise of silver. I know a lot of silver bugs are like getting high on their own farts right now. Silver going from basically like the 30s all the way up to 90 something dollars. And don't get me wrong, I love that too. But silver's not gold. When gold rises precipitously, that's problematic for the dollar, always. But when silver rises because of the industrial use, because, all the paper contract, buffoonery and stuff like that, you don't really know what's what. Why is it rising? Because of industrial use? Are we baking in the fact that, a car in the future is going to use a kilo of troy ounces of silver, or what? Or data centers are going to use silver? I don't know. No one really knows. So anybody who tells you they know what they're doing when they're investing is a liar, 100%. Or they're like Martha Stewart, they're doing insider trading, they've got an insider source. Any normal person has no clue what's happening. They're just going by hunches. They may analyze, they may treat it like a casino. A lot of people right now are treating life like a casino. That's why we see that the rise of these poly markets, Kalshi, what's the other one? Well, like DraftKings, FanDuel for sports ball people. This is problematic. You have people literally betting on how many times a South Park character will say a certain word in the next episode. You have people betting on, if Trump will have a stroke. You have people betting on like if, Trump will have tan lines on around his hairline. Like you have people betting on this, and the vast majority of these people are people who have given up on life completely. It's just a Hail Mary for them. But there's also people who are astute investors who are like figuring out the odds of this. It's like card counters at the blackjack table in the casino. There's no crying in the casino. That's one thing that people forget to tell you. There's no crying in the casino. And many of you may not know this. If you go to Las Vegas and you start bawling in the casino, they will usher you out. They don't want any crying. They don't want none of that because it kills the vibe for everybody. But the poly markets are really interesting to me. And I don't know what to make of it. It's obviously, like so late stage capitalism, right? Like you can bet on anything, right? Not even table games, not even card games, not even the one-armed bandit in the casino. You can literally bet on the weather, so the average weather forecast is a 10-day, right? 7-day or 10-day. Now you can bet on your local weather like 14 days from now. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But this is where it is now because most people, they're making very little in their job or whatever if they're not running their own business. And so the Hail Mary used to be playing the lotto. And people still do that. But now the poly market, that really plays on people because it feels so much more personal. Instead of dealing with the lottery where the odds are like, 1 billion to 1 that you're going to win or whatever. With the poly market, you feel like it's within your grasp. Like, man, I could win some money. I might be right about this. And that's a troubling thing. There's going to be a lot more people going broke. From time to time, I will actually fire up TikTok. And, there's people who on TikTok, they stream sports. NBA, NFL, NHL, whatever. And it's interesting watching these people. They're like, oh, my parlay didn't hit, and then they're like throwing a video game controller across the room, or like, oh, finally that leg of my parlay, I got it. I'm going to make some money tonight. It's so sad because it used to be, whatever you think of sports ball, it used to be people would just watch the game because they enjoyed the mechanics of it. They enjoyed watching basketball or football or hockey or baseball or whatnot or tennis, And nowadays, it's just not that way anymore. People just don't watch just for the love of the game. They watch because they're trying to get a payout. And I've noticed that actually for people who watch sports, it kills their joy. They're not able to actually enjoy the games anymore because they've got their parlay. And they're too worried about if it's going to hit, if they're going to make some money. And I've told people before, friends of mine that like sports, I'm like, dude, you love this game. Why are you killing your joy, brother? Like, you like going to the stadium. You like watching on the TV, whatever. I'm not judging. But if you find joy in that, then why are you getting caught up in this, FanDuel, DraftKings, sports betting stuff? You're mixing business and pleasure. And I'm seeing that a lot with people who enjoy sports and just people who do the poly market gambling is like, you're really killing your joy in stuff that you like in life. You really need to kind of like compartmentalize what you like and stop trying to monetize it, because you're going to find that you're going to start basically like destroying your dopamine even more than it is already. And it's really unfortunate. But yeah, I see that. I really do see that. It's no good, I do, I will say, I'm not really a sports guy, but I used to play some sports when I was a kid, but, even though I know the NFL scripted, I have been watching playoff games because, I am from Chicago. I am a Bears fan, if you want to call it that. And, the Bears won the Super Bowl, about 2 months after I was born. So I figure, 40 years later, hey, maybe they'll win again. So I'll watch, And the thing with me is, there's certain aspects of sports, you can call it, you're a sheeple if you watch sports, whatever. There's certain things about sports. There are certain positive things you can get from sports too. Is the cooperation, the teamwork, some of the strategy, right? Some of the play calling is interesting from like a military perspective. There's some cool stuff to it. So I don't know. I mean, there's people who are like really elitist, like, oh my god, I can't believe you watched that. And yeah, for me, I'm like, there's something to get from anything, really. You can always get something from it. So I don't know. But then there's the drooling tards, who they watch all the sports games and obviously you can tell they're just glued to the screen. They're not thinking anything. They're just basically living through their star players, kind of like people watch, sexual acts on the internet, and they live through the guy who's performing, right? So there's all that too. I don't know. I'll probably um, I'll probably put a poll up on my channel eventually and see who's doing this sports betting and DraftKings and FanDuel, and who's doing the poly market stuff. That might be kind of interesting. I don't know. There's quite a few people out there who are, I bet, and I'm sure quite a few of them probably have some stories to tell. Anyways, I'm kind of bored, so I'm gonna wait until I get some interesting people on here. So if you're interesting, drop in on the chat and let me know. Otherwise, I'm just gonna kind of surf on the internet, and if somebody comes by, that's cool. I'm actually reading an interesting book right now. Let me see. My computer's kind of freezing on me at the moment. Um, oh well. Let's see if I can pull it up. Oh, let's see. This is a book by Kathy O'Brien called Transformation of America. I read this book a long time ago and I'm just kind of brushing up on it again. I figure, hey, my FBI agent might be in here and they might get a chuckle out of this too. The basis of all power over people is mind control and subtle forms of hypnotism. And that's what this book is all about. Anyways, for anybody getting in here right now, I'm just reading this book. Kind of bored. I talked for the first 20 minutes of the stream. So now, if anybody wants to get in, get on the chat, you're more than welcome to. I'm just going to hang out and read. I'll keep this fired up and running. Again, this is Transformation of America by Kathy O'Brien. Well, that took a left turn real quick. I'm 12 pages in and we're already talking about PDF files. Jeez. Damn. I have an owl outside my bedroom. A barn owl. Houston and I returned to Tennessee, and I briefly met his wife, Kathy, for the first time when she greeted us at the gate. She appeared to me to be young, beautiful, very dumb, and dressed like a prosta you know what. What a great sentence. I like that. Oh, I haven't even looked at the comments. Gravy 4K, sup shaman, hope all is well. Everything is well, thank you. Kennedy says, hi, how are you? I'm doing great. Thank you. Hope you're doing good too. What the F? My first response to this officer was that Houston was too stupid and crooked to be connected to U.S. intelligence. This comment was quickly countered with a gut wrenching photograph of Houston. He was smiling a demonic grin while apparently having backdoor sex with a small, very young, frightened black boy. Later, he was identified to me as being Haitian. Whoa, this book is going left real quick, going to left field. Yeah, and I know before anybody says anything, yes, I know I'm one of those people. I got a million tabs open and I got two other windows with just as many tabs. I know. I know, I know, I know. And for those of you interested, I am bored right now, so I am reading or rereading a book I read in the past called Transformation of America by Kathy O'Brien. Any of you want to get up in the chat, you're welcome to, but I'm just reading this for the time being. You can find it, if you want to read it yourself, you can find a free PDF of it on archive.org.